So, The Career Equation is a book that puts into place a really practical and structured model for coaching a culture of career conversations. My organization has been working with large companies all over the world to help their individuals get super clear about how their skills, their passions, and their interests align with the opportunities in the organization. Why is this important? Because most of us fell into our careers rather than chose them. So at a certain point, even if they fell well, even if they're doing really well in the work that they're doing with you, that opportunity to think again in a structured way about how who they are might best align with the opportunities in the business is incredibly valuable. It's good for both the individual and for the business. And the book really is about having one simple, scalable, big idea, a way of explaining and articulating what matters most in a person's career, and having a step-by-step approach to being able to do that. So I dissect that and make that really easy. But alongside that, I tell lots of stories about how the power of a career conversation for both the individuals and for the organizations that we work with can provide a timely, relevant, impactful intervention that drives engagement, internal mobility, and most importantly, helps individuals to see a future within your organization and to own and drive towards that career destination. So that's what the book's all about. I define a career in a way that perhaps is a bit controversial because it has nothing to do with professions or industries. I say that a career is a series of choices where we explore how do we align our gifts, who we are, with how we spend our time and how we make our money. A career is a series of choices where we explore how do we align our gifts with how we spend our time and how we make our money. And this is particularly important because most of us have actually never consciously made that decision. We spend more time planning our annual holidays than we do thinking about the 80,000 hours of time that we're going to spend working full time during our lifetime. And it's a constant opportunity to choose and choose again, because a career is iterative. And in fact, the future of work is such that the pivots that we're going to be making, the number of careers we're going to be having, has really increased exponentially. So to make this easy for people, because actually too much choice can be overwhelming, it can be a bad thing, I devised a model called the career equation. And it was informed by 16 years now of career coaching practice and understanding the different criteria on which people make decisions around their career. So there are basically 4 key elements to the equation. The first is that we want people to be working in an area of skill. We want them to have a natural gift or talent. We kind of get that. You've heard that before. They want them to apply that skill to an area of passion or interest, a subject matter they have enthusiasm for, a way of working that excites and energizes them. And then we want them to have a result that relates to their values, that measures their impact and gauges their success based on who they are as a person. So I might love communicating, I might be good in my skill set of communicating. I might have a real passion for helping people to make connections and take an idea and turn it into practicality. And the result might be that it makes a difference in their lives and gives them a real sense of clarity in their career. Yeah. But those 3 things, those are what give you that sense of who they are. But the most important component of the equation is the idea that all of those things can be in place, but if they are put in an environment that doesn't suit who they are, they will still struggle. So the most important criteria for career is what kind of environment best suits this person. And this can be the critical factor. So the equation of skills, passion, impact, and environment is a way in which you quickly diagnose what an individual means by a successful career and provides a model through which everybody can have the same kind of high quality conversation to discover what a successful career means to them. Such a good question. Thank you. Gosh, there have been so many trends that have been massively accelerated by the pandemic. So things that were kind of heading towards somewhere interesting have really exploded as a result of the requirements that we've had to stay at home. So, first of all, you have probably the most obvious that many of us are working as part of virtual teams, and some of us for the first time ever. So, some organizations really well set up for this. Others, this was a huge and stressful exercise. So, from both managers, HR, team leaders, this question of how do we stay connected or how do we quickly form cohesion as part of a virtual team? What kinds of rituals, what kind of modalities, what kind of tech is required to really stay close to people? And particularly at times where they may be feeling much more isolated than they would normally. And how do we create that sense of team? And how do we create that sense of group identity and take care of people when they're at a distance? I think the second question is really about when people join an organization, how do you induct them into the culture, the philosophy, the ethos, the way things are done when they are on their own? But this particularly acute, I think, for more junior members of an organisation, for whom it may be the first time in a formal workplace environment, and for whom so much happens in terms of learning on the job by accompanying people to things that are happening, by the informal elements of conversation. And every business has felt this, the impact of that lack of kind of conviviality and community and cross-fertilization. But I think this particular question about how do we bring people on board and help them feel really part of something during a time where we're all living so separately just now. And I think as a result of that, the third kind of opportunity, the thing that's next, is really what used to sit on my slide as kind of one of the really big ideas, which is the digital nomad. We've all had the experience that a lot more is possible at a distance than we might have imagined. And whilst we might have really missed those chances to get together, and certainly we will never want to live in a world that's always entirely disconnected, but certainly people are now curious about the ebb and flow of the opportunity to do work outside of their geography, outside of their office, outside of HQ, really working remotely and at a distance. And I think that trend obviously is going to accelerate, it's here to stay, but it also facilitates a really interesting question about the workplace environment itself, the workspace. What now is the function of an office? How might we need to redesign it to be fit for that purpose? And how do we then interact with it in terms of our relationship geographically? How many people continue to make use of that shared space, and when and how? I think these are all extremely interesting questions for the future of work. Everyone knows that the cost of recruiting, finding, recruiting, training, inducting talent is enormous. But there are other hidden costs as well. There are costs like the loss of knowledge, right? So the brain drain, as it were. If someone's had expertise, relationships, clients, and knowledge of what's worked, that's a great loss, and it has a cost to an organization. There's also an impact on business continuity. When people leave unexpectedly, when there's an unexpected resignation, somewhere else has to take the strain. And that can have a real impact on morale, on productivity, on focus, and on client delivery, on the actual quality of the service or product that you produce. The career equation is all about helping people to really be close to what individuals want out of their careers, because far too often what we find is that the kind of surprise resignations, the really unexpected loss of really key people within the organization, could easily have been prevented if a regular conversation was taking place based around a curiosity about what an individual wants out of their careers. Most people leave an organization because they can't see the future there, and actually a large majority of the time, that's just because no one has taken time to discover what matters most to them right now, testing their assumptions about what might have mattered to that person, and to help them to see where the opportunities might lie for their future and the things they want within the business. So career conversation is a fantastic intervention to ensure that that kind of costly loss of expertise, of people who are hard to find, hard to develop, and all the investment that you make up front isn't lost unnecessarily. And listen, the job for life is over. Are people going to leave an organization and there's really nothing that you could have done? Of course, occasionally that will happen. But just think about it this way. If people want to talk about their careers and they're not having that conversation regularly within your organization, eventually they start having that conversation with the competition or recruiters or elsewhere. So you want to be the first to know if they are thinking it's just not possible to make the next move that I'd like to make in this business, or I don't know where to put myself, or I'm thinking I'd love to do something completely different. None of those things should be a surprise to you. And what we don't want is that they check out of the business without you knowing and having the opportunity to find the right thing for them and keep them within your organization. I think universal basic income is an extremely interesting and exciting idea. It's a provocative idea. So, for those who are saying, what do you mean? Universal basic income is the idea that instead of spending time, money, energy on administering a welfare state, administering a tax system, we reduce that and take the saving from that and reallocate to everybody, regardless of the current level of income or financial status, a basic income level, providing them with the money that they need to, in a dignified and respectful way, meet their expenses of living in that country, provide food for themselves and utilities. The concept is really radical and interesting, and it comes about because there's a belief that in terms of the future of work in the West, we're just not going to need the number of people we have working to do the work that needs to be done. So we would subsequently have a real rise in unemployment, and we'd then have to administer that. And the reason that I think universal basic income is incredibly interesting is because, as a kind of careers thought leader, I'm really obsessed with this idea that when people do work that really aligns with their gifts, they have the maximum positive income, positive benefit that they can have on themselves and on other people. And universal basic income creates the principle that if the exchange is I bring my value to work and I exchange that for money, if I did not need to do that, would I still come to work? Would your people still come to work if they did not have to make the exchange based on finance? What would they do instead? What work might they take on and what might they let go of? And I actually think I think universal basic income is going to come in over the next decade or so in a graduated way. And it's really important for employers to be thinking about how do we stay in touch with what people are really brilliant at, what they would love to do, what they would do even if money wasn't the only reason that they were doing it, and how do we make sure that as many of our people as possible are aligned with doing work that they love? Because if they didn't need to come in order to keep things going, they might not. And what might the implications be for our stability, continuity, if that were the case? The book has literally just come out this week. Look, just hot off the press. So I'm doing lots of kind of publicity and interviews for BBC and panels and things like that to kind of share the key ideas within it. One of the other really exciting projects that my organization is working on at the moment is taking all the thought leadership and the work that we've done on kind of practical applications for career conversations within organizations, world-class international organizations, and exploring how we might translate that to supporting young people entering the workplace post-pandemic for the first time. So that's a very exciting project that I'm very inspired by and looking forward to getting my teeth into. And probably our next horizon, I think that's the most, the juicy thing, is taking some of the work that we've got here that we know works and really transforms people's experience of their careers, and turning that into a digital application. So I guess becoming in a way a tech startup, built on kind of our R&D and thought leadership so far. So that's a real leap for me. And I always enjoy doing things that are leaps, the things that I've never done before. So I'm looking forward to getting stuck into that with my team and seeing how that pans out for our clients.